I remember the cold of that morning, not the kind that seeps through your clothes, but the kind that slips into your bones when you're scared and pretending not to be. That morning was supposed to be the beginning of my healing. My spine surgery was booked months in advance, and after a year of pain that had reduced me to a shell of who I was finally going to walk straight again. I thought my husband, Mark, would be by my side through all of it. "You're gonna do great, babe," he whispered, brushing hair from my forehead as the nurse came to wheel me into pre-op. "When you wake up, I'll be right here." I smiled at him. I believed him. After all, we'd been married for 6 years. We'd weathered so much together. Why would he leave now? As they pushed me down the long hallway, the ceiling lights flickering above like a countdown, I held onto his voice like a lifeline. I closed my eyes, imagining waking up and seeing his face, holding his hand, laughing through the pain. But when I opened my eyes, he was gone. No flowers. No waiting chair filled with anxious energy. Just an empty seat and a nurse who wouldn't meet my eyes. "Excuse me," I croaked, my throat still raw from the breathing tube. "Is my husband outside?" The nurse hesitated, adjusting the four. He left about an hour into the surgery. He said he needed to get some air." I waited. Maybe he was just getting coffee. Maybe something came up. Maybe he'd be back in 5 minutes. But the hours passed. By afternoon, the woman in the curtain next to me had 3 visitors, a bouquet of balloons, and a husband rubbing her feet. I had an untouched cup of water and the rising panic that I was missing something. I called his phone. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Hey, I'm out of surgery. Where are you?" No response. By evening, a different nurse came in. I asked again. She looked confused. "There's no one listed as your emergency contact. You came in alone, sweetie." No, that's not possible. He was here. He kissed me goodbye before surgery. His name is Mark Taylor. She blinked. "Sorry, maybe check with admissions?" But I didn't need to. I knew. Something was wrong. Not just a mix-up. Not just a delay. He left. And he wasn't coming back. I stared at the ceiling that night, in the dark of that hospital room, hearing the beep of my monitor, the hum of machines. And I felt this hollow. Not just from the surgery, but from the realization that the person I trusted most had vanished when I was at my weakest. "Why?" I whispered into the dark. No answer. The next morning, a nurse wheeled in my small hospital bag. "These were left in the waiting room," she said awkwardly. I opened it, heart racing, my phone, yes. My wallet. But my wedding ring gone. Gone. And that's when it hit me. He didn't just step out for air. He walked out of my life. I stared at the empty space on my finger for hours. My skin was pale where the ring used to be, like my body hadn't caught up to the betrayal yet. It was as if my heart still expected him to walk in, grinning, with some dumb excuse like a parking ticket or a dead phone battery. But he didn't. Not that day. Not the next. Not ever. The doctors said the surgery had gone well, that I should focus on healing. That rest was my priority. How do you rest when your entire world just got up and walked out? I left the hospital 4 days later, not to a home filled with flowers and welcome, but to a deadbolt door and silence. I could barely climb the stairs. My legs trembled with each step, not just from the incisions on my spine, but from the weight of not knowing what waited behind that door. The apartment was dark. Cold. Everything looked the same, until it didn't. His shoes were gone. The framed wedding photo by the TV? Missing. The closet half empty. And, the worst part? The envelope on the kitchen counter with my name written in his handwriting. I opened it slowly. My hands were shaking. No words. Just the bank receipts. The withdrawal notices. The balance. $0. He'd taken it all. I fell to the floor. Not cried, collapsed. Have you ever screamed without making a sound? That kind of grief that doesn't come out in sobs but in breathless gasps, like the air's been ripped from your lungs? That was me. Alone. On the floor. Healing from surgery, abandoned like garbage. I texted him. Again. Where are you? Please just tell me what's going on. I had surgery. You promised you'd be there. 3 blue ticks. No reply. The worst part? He was active. I could see it.
Online.
Probably chatting with her. I didn't know her name yet. Just rumors. Our neighbor, Kelly, knocked later that week. She looked guilty. I wasn't sure I should say anything, she started. But I saw him. A few days ago. With a woman. They had suitcases. It looked permanent. Was she blonde? I asked. Kelly nodded.
Yeah.
Younger. Kind of smug.
Smug.
Like she won. Like I was disposable. I nodded and thanked her, shutting the door before the tears could fall. Mark hadn't just left me. He'd replaced me. And the timing, it wasn't random. He waited until I was under anesthesia. Until I couldn't chase him. Couldn't ask questions. Couldn't even stand. That's the kind of man he really was. For 6 years, I thought I married someone who'd carry me when I couldn't walk. Turns out, he couldn't even stand by me when I needed him most. I didn't eat much that week. I moved slow. I slept on the couch because the bed was too painful, physically and emotionally. But somewhere in those endless, aching days, something hardened inside me. Not bitterness.
Not yet.
Just a whisper. A seed.
He's gone.
He's really gone. And I am still here. Still breathing. Still healing. And maybe, just maybe, still capable of getting back up. The hardest part wasn't the pain in my back. It wasn't the way I had to relearn how to roll out of bed without screaming, or the way every single step felt like dragging a 1,000-pound chain behind me. The hardest part was brushing my teeth in front of the bathroom mirror and not recognizing the woman staring back. She looked hollow. Not just tired, but emptied. Like someone had taken a vacuum and sucked all the life out of her. That woman was me. Every part of my day had to be rebuilt from scratch. My body didn't move the way it used to. Even making coffee felt like a marathon. And the silence? It screamed louder than anything. I moved in with my friend Tasha, who offered me her guest room when I finally told her everything. I tried to act like I was fine, like this was all temporary, like it didn't hurt every second I was awake. But I cried into the pillow when she left for work. I cried when I dropped a plate because my hand shook from nerve pain. I cried because I didn't know who I was anymore. Mark had taken more than money. He'd taken my sense of self. I started physical therapy with Carla 3 times a week. She was tough. No nonsense. But kind. The kind of kind you don't get often. She didn't ask too many questions, but she noticed everything. You're carrying pain that's not just in your spine, she said during our second session. I laughed bitterly. Can you prescribe something for betrayal? She didn't smile. Just looked me in the eyes and said, you'll walk again. But you've got to believe there's something ahead worth walking toward. That night, I started writing again. I hadn't written in years. Used to blog back when I thought people cared what I had to say. Now, it wasn't about people. It was about survival. I opened a blank document and typed. While I was healing, he was leaving. That one sentence broke something open. Every day after therapy, I'd sit at Tasha's kitchen table and write. About the hospital. About the silence. About the envelope with my name and the empty bank account. About Kelly's words. About the way Mark had erased himself like a man tiptoeing out of a burning building he lit himself. The words poured out of me like blood from a fresh wound. And then something happened I didn't expect. People started reading. I posted one of the pieces anonymously on a support forum. Just to get it out. Didn't expect much. The next morning, it had dozens of comments. Same happened to me. Thought I was crazy. My husband left me while I was giving birth. This broke me, but also healed me. Somehow, my pain wasn't just mine. It belonged to so many women who'd been left behind, stepped on, silenced. That gave me something to live for. Not revenge. Not even closure. But a purpose. Carla noticed the change first. "You're moving different," she said one day. "Like you're walking toward something now."
I was.
I couldn't fully explain it, but the act of turning pain into paragraphs was saving me. Each word was a stitch in a wound that couldn't be reached by scalpels or pills. Tasha caught me smiling at my laptop one afternoon and said, "That better not be some rebound guy." "No," I said. "It's just me, coming back." And I was. Little by little, piece by piece. I cut my hair, not because of some big symbolic gesture. It just felt heavy. Like I'd been carrying a version of myself I didn't owe anything to anymore. I bought myself a pair of red sneakers. Bright ones. They made me feel fast, even if I still walked with a cane. People stared. Let them. I was preparing for something I hadn't told anyone about yet. A party. One of Mark's friends, one of ours, I guess, was throwing a big get-together. Tasha had been invited. She wasn't going to go, but I was. He would be there, with her. And for the first time, I didn't feel dread. I felt ready. Not for drama, not for revenge, but for the look on his face when he saw that the woman he left hadn't just survived. She had risen. The invitation sat on the table for days. It wasn't addressed to me, of course. It came to Tasha. But it had both our names on the envelope. And inside was the name that stopped my breath. Evan Montgomery. Mark's best friend. A mutual friend. The kind of guy who knew every corner of our marriage. If he invited Mark, he knew the whole story. Or, at least Mark's version of it. I stared at that invitation like it was a test I didn't study for. Tasha threw it in the trash. I fished it back out. "What are you doing?" she asked.
Thinking, I said.
Just thinking. The truth was, I didn't want to hide anymore. I was tired of being the woman who got left. Tired of walking around like I was made of broken glass. Tired of living like a ghost in someone else's story. I was writing every day now. I had a blog under a fake name. My words were reaching people. Real people. Strangers who messaged me at 3 a.m. to say, "You made me feel seen." That meant something. That meant everything. And physically, I was transforming. The cane was gone. My limp had softened into a confident stride. My back still ached, but I stood straighter. Taller. Like the bones had reformed around a different kind of steel. One day, Carla looked at me after therapy and said, "I think you're done here." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean you came in hunched over, eyes down, full of pain. And now? Now you walk like someone who knows where she's going." I didn't cry. I just nodded and whispered, "Thank you." Then I went to the mall. Bought a new dress. One that hugged my body, like I deserved to be seen.
Red.
Deep, striking red. The color of survival. The color of fire. I cut my hair, even shorter. Got my nails done. Looked in the mirror and saw someone I hadn't seen in years.
Me.
Not the wife. Not the patient. Not the abandoned girl lying in a hospital bed waiting for a man who'd already packed his bags.
Me.
Tasha came home and gasped when she saw me. "Holy, who is she?" I laughed.
A real one this time.
Someone who has a party to attend. The night of the party, I stood at the door for a second before walking in. My heels clicked against the pavement like a drum roll. I took one deep breath and stepped inside.
It was a rooftop.
Warm lights, laughter in the air, music low and elegant. And everywhere I looked, familiar faces. Faces that used to know me as half of a couple. Now I was just me. I could feel the whispers before I heard them. "Is that Julia? She looks wow." I thought she moved away, and then I saw him.
Mark.
Standing near the bar, a drink in his hand. Talking to someone. Laughing. He turned. His eyes landed on me. And in that instant, just a second, I saw his face change. Shock. Then confusion. Then something else. Fear? He wasn't expecting this version of me. He was expecting the broken one. The one he left. I kept walking. Past the bar. Past him. Toward a group of old friends. I smiled. Hugged them. Laughed like nothing hurt. But inside something was boiling. Not rage. Not revenge. Just the delicious satisfaction of knowing I'd become someone he'd never have the courage to face. He started walking toward me. And I didn't flinch. Let him come. Let him see exactly what he left behind. He stood just a few feet away, holding that stupid glass of whiskey like it gave him confidence. Julia? I turned slowly. Let my eyes settle on him like he was nothing more than a minor inconvenience at the grocery store. Mark, I said flatly. He looked me up and down, blinking like he couldn't believe I was real. You look different. I tilted my head, smiled. So do you. Smaller. It was petty, I know. But God, it felt good. He laughed nervously. I didn't expect to see you here. Clearly. He shifted on his feet. His shirt was too tight. His face a little puffy. And behind him, I saw her. The girl. The blonde. She was thinner than me. Younger. But the way she watched me, that look wasn't confidence. It was fear. Mark tried to steer the conversation into casual territory, like we were old friends catching up after a long vacation. How've you been? He asked. I stared at him. Well, the last time I saw you, I was in a hospital bed. Post-surgery. You'd vanished. My bag was missing a ring. My bank account was empty. And you were, what? Starting your new life. His face flushed. Look, Julia, No. I cut him off, my voice like ice. You don't get to explain. You already did. When you walked out that door while I was under anesthesia. People around us were watching now. Conversations were slowing. Eyes drifting in our direction. He forced a smile. Let's not do this here. Oh, don't worry, I said sweetly. We're done. I turned my back on him and walked toward the railing. My heart was pounding, but I didn't let it show. Not even a crack. Tasha came up beside me a few moments later, wide-eyed. Holy hell, you just ate him alive. I didn't even touch him, I replied. That should have been the end of it. But Mark wasn't done embarrassing himself. He followed me. Loud this time. You're not going to even let me explain? He snapped. You think you're some kind of saint now? Like you're better than me? I turned to face him again. People were definitely watching now. Even Evan was making his way over, a nervous look on his face. No, I said calmly. I don't think I'm better than you. I know I am. He stepped closer. You don't know what I've been through. You left me during spinal surgery. I said, louder this time. You took everything. And you know what? I still came back stronger than you'll ever be. That's when it happened. His eyes rolled back. His body wobbled. And in the most poetic, absurd, karmic way possible, Mark fainted. Right there in front of everyone. Hit the floor like a sack of potatoes. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then gasps. Then people rushed over. His girlfriend screamed and dropped her glass. Someone called for help. And me? I just stood there. Didn't move. Didn't flinch. He was lying at my feet, the same man who once said, I'll always be right here. And now? He couldn't even stay conscious in my presence. Poetic, isn't it? The paramedics arrived within minutes. Dehydration, they said. Stress. Maybe something deeper. His girlfriend was frantic, yelling at everyone, trying to blame someone. Anyone. But no one was listening. Everyone was looking at me. And in that moment I realized I wasn't just healed. I was admired, respected, seen. I walked over to the bar, ordered a sparkling water, and sipped it slowly as the crowd thinned and Mark was carted off the rooftop in a stretcher. Before he left, he opened his eyes just long enough to see me watching. And then he passed out again. I stayed until the party ended. People came up to me one by one. Some I barely remembered. They offered quiet words of support, compliments, curiosity. I didn't say much, just smiled. Let them wonder. Let them fill in the blanks. By the end of the night, the whispers had changed. They weren't about the woman who got left. They were about the woman who returned. The next morning, I woke up to 3 text messages and 1 missed call. All from Mark. The first message: I don't remember what happened. The second: can we talk? The third was just a single word: please. I stared at my phone for a long time. Not because I was debating whether to reply, but because I wasn't. There was nothing left to say. He'd spoken loud and clear the day he walked out on me in that hospital bed. Everything after that? Just noise. I got up, made myself coffee, sat in the sun by the window. Tasha peeked in, smirking. You see the group chat? No, I said. She slid her phone toward me. There it was. A dozen messages from people who had been at the party. Screenshots. Reactions. Memes even. Did you see her? Mark fainted like a Victorian widow. I swear she looked him dead in the eyes, and he just collapsed. They made me laugh. Really laugh. That belly-deep kind you forget your body's capable of when you've spent too long surviving. I sent one reply to Mark. Just one word. Healed. Then I blocked his number. Not out of spite. Out of peace. He didn't get access to this version of me. The one who had rebuilt herself from the bone up. The one who could walk without wincing, breathe without breaking, and love herself in a way he never could. I stepped out that afternoon, ran a few errands, wore the red dress again, because why not? I passed a woman in the grocery store who did a double take. Sorry, she said. I just thought you look really familiar. Maybe, I smiled. Maybe you've read something I wrote. Because yes, that was the other part of the story. The blog? It had blown up. My anonymous posts were being shared across forums, Instagram pages, even a few TikToks with voiceovers of my words and strangers saying, "This is what healing looks like." People called me brave.
Raw. Honest.
A voice for women who felt voiceless. And then came the email. Subject line: book proposal inquiry. A small publishing house in Seattle had tracked me down. Wanted to turn the blog into a memoir. A real book. My story on shelves. I sat there staring at the screen, hand over my mouth. This pain, this wreckage, it was turning into something. Not just a story. A legacy. That night, I went for a walk. No destination. Just the evening air, my sneakers hitting the pavement like punctuation marks in a sentence. I was finally writing for myself.
I thought about him.
Not with longing. Not with hate. Just clarity. Mark had been a chapter. A long one. A painful one. But he wasn't the whole book. I was. And now I got to decide what the next page said. As I turned the corner back toward home, my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Someone had tagged my blog page in a story. A quote from one of my entries in a fancy font over a soft background. Some people leave you when you're down so they don't have to watch you rise. Underneath it, a comment. She didn't just rise. She walked in and made him faint. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed it. 3 months later, I stood backstage at a women's empowerment event in San Francisco, holding a microphone in one hand and a small, worn journal in the other. I hadn't planned on speaking. I was supposed to be one of the featured guests, just a short panel, maybe a few words. But then someone dropped out, and someone else said, "Why don't you tell your story?" I almost said no. But then I thought of the hospital bed. The silence. The empty apartment. The look on Mark's face right before he hit the ground. I stepped out into the spotlight. The room was full, 200 women, maybe more. All seated. All watching. "My name is Julia," I began. "And last year, I lost everything. My health. My marriage. My sense of self." I paused. Let the quiet settle. But here's the thing. Sometimes losing everything is how you find yourself. I told them about the surgery, the disappearance, the bank account, the red dress. I told them how I started writing, not for anyone else, but to survive. And how those words somehow traveled across the world and came back to me, full of strength I didn't know I had. Then I opened the journal. This was the first sentence I wrote after everything fell apart. I said, flipping to the first page. It says, "While I was healing, he was leaving." Some women nodded. Some were crying. And then I closed it. But when I came back, I didn't need him to stay. The applause was instant.
Loud. Real.
Carla was in the front row, tears in her eyes. Tasha stood in the back, recording the whole thing. Afterward, strangers hugged me, thanked me. One woman whispered, "You said what I've never had the courage to say out loud." That night in my hotel room, I sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. The book deal was signed. My story was going to print next spring. The blog had over 100,000 followers, and I had speaking requests from 5 different cities. All because I chose to stand when I could have stayed down. Mark? I hadn't heard from him since the day I blocked him. Tasha said he was still with the blonde, but quieter now, less flashy. No more bragging posts. No more group invites. It didn't matter. He was a chapter. I was the author. Before bed, I opened my journal again and wrote one final line. He left during the pain, but I walked through fire and became the flame. I closed it, turned off the light, and for the first time in forever, I slept without waking up once.